Welcome. I'm Alex Apple, joined by Jeremiah Glenn and Jeremy Clark, wrapping up TCU's win today against Southeastern Louisiana, a game where the Frogs started sluggish, were able to come out in the second half and insert themselves and able to get some of their backups, some twos and some threes, some reps in this game, and rest up for a short week against Texas Tech. Gary Patterson, Trayvon Boykin, B.J. Catalan, among some others, spoke with the media after the game. Guys, what stood out to you in the post-game press conference? It seems like Patterson says that he was happy with his defense. They just gave up too many big plays in the first half, and thus the close score at halftime.
I think we can all agree that the offense was kind of anemic today. Were they looking ahead to Texas Tech? Possibly. Were they playing down to the competition? Absolutely. I think they even mentioned that. Boykin even mentioned that to me and when I was talking to him in the post-game. They can't do that again next week against Texas Tech, but that was the biggest problem today. I think they really played down the competition.
What do they really have to do better in order to, first off, compete with Texas Tech, let alone win? Because it's an offense for Tech that can put up some serious points.
First off, you got to show up like you want to be on the football field. I mean, I think that's all that it was. They were playing down the competition. And honestly, it was very vanilla in the first half. And I think what you saw was TCU just wanting to get through this game, to get to a short week to Texas Tech on Thursday night. I really think it's just going to be emotion, attention to detail. Like Trayvon said, there wasn't two passes more than 10 yards in that first half. It was a very vanilla offense. They just wanted to get through this game relatively healthy. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And get to the Thursday night game against Texas Tech.
But they did get another spark with Trayvon coming in late,
no doubt.
In the second quarter and in the halftime. I mean, it's obvious, we've seen it through the first two games, that there is some type of offensive spark when Boykin comes in and gets snaps at quarterback.
Jeremiah, you're obviously referencing Casey Paul goes down with what appears to probably be a broken arm that very well could end his season, at least put him out for some time. Patterson, all he would say was that he would not play next week.
Guys, which basically means he's going to be out for a while.
Let's take a minute to reflect on kind of the circuitous, odd career of Casey Paul right here. Definitely his teammates expressed concern for him. B.J. Catalan said he said a prayer for Casey, but man, a tough break for a guy that worked so hard to come back.
He's already won. I mean, for him to come out there and even be on the football field, he's won. It's not about completions and touchdown passes and leading TCU to a bowl game. The guy had problems off the field that a lot of us don't actually have to go through. And so I can't sit here and say, I feel for Casey because I know where he's coming from, because I don't. But for him to go through the media scrutiny he faced last year and go through that program, he's already won to even be back on the football field and in with his teammates. And I'm sure whether he plays again for the rest of the year, he's still going to be there supporting his teammates like he has been the last few months.
Yeah. You hate to see it for Casey. He's worked so hard to get back on the field. He's done the things that were asked of him. This is a really tough break. Obviously you put aside all the statistics and the awards and the things that he was expected to do. I mean, we were talking about this earlier, that this was going to be, one of the stories of college football this year. If Casey was able to make this comeback and TCU was winning and challenging for the Big 12. Now it's just you hope that he's okay and that he can keep his head on straight, that he doesn't have any issues with this, and you just send out a prayer for that family, because they've been through a lot, and just hope that he can keep going.
Patterson wouldn't say after the game the extent of the injury. He did say that x-rays had been taken. Reading between the lines of GP speak, we think that his arm probably is in fact broken. It's his non-throwing forearm is what we've been told. He was not taken to the hospital. GP didn't think, and he didn't even address it with the team, but his teammates obviously had Casey on their mind afterward. But let's move on. I mean, TCU faces Tech this week. You put that in your rearview mirror, you feel for Casey, but it's Trayvon Boykin's team to lead, and it's a team that still has not seemed to have a go-to wide receiver on the edge. It seemed to me like, granted in the second half they played better, but the backups, the twos and threes, had more success than the Cam Whites and the Ladarius Browns today.
Well, one thing I like to see them stretch the field with Deontay Gray like they did. He had two big completions, two big catches. I think he had 2 for 67. And what's that? 2 for 67. Finding that seam, and that's something that they didn't find in the first half. And I asked Trayvon about it. Was there something that Coach Burns and Coach Anderson talked to him about, finding those open receivers? Because they were open. Tyson Slanina was open a couple times. Brandon Carter.
3 times.
You can see he was getting very frustrated out there without getting a pass thrown his way. That's some of the things I like seeing in the second half. That's what they got to do this week against Texas Tech. And Texas Tech's going to try to take it away.
Did it seem to you like Casey's decision making was just a little bit slow? You'd love to have him out there, but he was not terrific.
Honestly, yes.
In his 6 quarters so far this year.
The first game against LSU, I chalked it up to a fast LSU defense and maybe being a little bit rusty. Today, it was more of the same. He wasn't going through his reads. And when he did make a decision, a lot of times, one play, Carter open on a post across the middle, wide open. Casey throws into quadruple coverage. I mean,
Right.
bad decision making, and he wasn't seeing the field well at all. So it was more of the same of a carryover from the LSU game. Here's what this caught my eye: Tyson Nina and Cameron Eccles-Looper in the slot side by side. Those two kids can cause fits for defenses, and I think you're going to see more of that as the season goes along. Because honestly, these other receivers aren't getting it done right now.
But today especially, I don't think we've seen much of TCU's playbook, and I think they knew they could get away with not having to open it up all the way, and kind of full tech a little bit coming up this Thursday. There's no way that's the offense that we're going to see TCU run Thursday.
I don't think that you've seen their vertical passing game
No.
like they're accustomed to running. Jeremiah's talked about opening it up and finding some routes on the seam. I mean, that was more a product of just really bad coverage. I mean, 4, 5, 6 times probably wide open down the middle and down the seam. TCU had an option right there, but I think their passing game has been pretty limited so far. I hope so, because
Right.
it's looked like an offense that was stiff. And if if this is kind of what you see is what you get, I question whether against some Big 12 defenses that's going to work. Now, we'll find out real quick on Thursday.
It took 6.5 quarters for TCU to have a touchdown pass on the season. And just think about that for a second with the receivers they have, the size, the speed, the guys they have that can catch the football. That's one thing. Glaring stat right there. 6.5 quarters to get your first touchdown pass on the year.
Well, here's my vanilla offense or not, that offensive line is going to have to play better. They're going to
Right.
have to give the quarterback more time to throw the football. The few times that they did have a little bit more time to throw, you saw some big plays down the field. But I feel like there's too much penetration on the defensive line. Maybe it is very vanilla, and these defenses have, they're not too worried about it being, a bunch of different plays thrown at them. But right now, it's just the offensive line's going to have to improve.
Speaking of defense, they've got to get the wheel route covered because Texas Tech's going to
Yeah.
come out and try to throw that. And Gary mentioned in post
Double
game
moves
that was
all
the first
game
time
against
that they
Texas
had
Tech.
ran that, and it wasn't. We saw the first time when Bennett actually overthrew the running back, and I could have sworn
It's
that
hard
that
for
was a
Gary to
running
see
back.
that, probably.
Yeah, exactly. But that's a play that has had success against the 4-2-5. They tried it again over the middle, and Chris Hackett came up with a huge interception. That was a great play by him.
Right.
But Texas Tech's going to watch that film and try to attack, some of the things that they saw from LSU, and obviously today. And honestly, I thought the quarterback today is going to help TCU play against Texas Tech because athletically, the guy rushes for 132, throws for 132. I don't think they're going to see a guy that's going to take off and run like that for a long
Bennett
time.
was the real deal.
Baker Mayfield has got good feet. He's got good wheels, but I think they'll be ready for it, especially after playing.
And one of the things that you get with Tech's offense is, let's say that TCU fans think going into this game, TCU's 10 points better. Well, that offense probably adds 7 points onto its talent every week. It's creative, and Kingsbury certainly is good at calling plays. That's one thing you know about Tech. It's going to come down to who plays better defense probably next week because I think both teams are going to score some points. And if TCU's offense does struggle against the Tech defense, I think they're going to have some problems because I really think at this point with how the TCU defense is playing, Tech's going to be able to score 20-something points, maybe jump into the 30s.
But you got to be impressed with the pass rush, even though it is against Southeastern Louisiana FCS school. Devontae Fields coming in there showed a good rush, but Gary said he was a little rusty this afternoon. But you got to be impressed with guys like Terrell Lathan, Tevin Lawson. The run defense did really well today. A couple big plays over in the passing game to those running backs, but overall they stopped the running game pretty well. I mean, I don't know the exact stat in front of me, but what is it, like less than 100 yards? But you got to be impressed with that. And offensive line up at Tech's having troubles too. So it's not like Texas Tech's got LSU offensive line coming at TCU. And I think the players are going to be more hyped for this game. Obviously, they know the difference, like Gary said. Our players know the difference between LSU and Grambling. They know the difference between Southeastern Louisiana and Texas Tech. So I look for them to come out with a lot more spark than they did today.
And the defense gave up 229 yards rushing, which is a high number, but you got to think, 130, I believe, of that came from the quarterback position. You're not going to have that from Baker Mayfield next week. It's going to be more of a traditional running attack. Fellas, as we wrap up, what's one thing that both either the offense or the defense has got to do better if DC's going to beat Tech in 4 days now?
Well, we saw more pressure today from the defensive line, but Devontae Fields, the rest of those guys are going to have to come out in this game. They're going to have to get early pressure. They're going to have to make Baker move. Now, Baker can move out of the pocket, but you don't want him to get comfortable in the pocket. And he kind of moves as he's throwing anyway. but you don't want to give him any kind of time. You want to make him start running for his life early on in the game, make him kind of question his decisions down the field.
It's got to be involvement of all the receivers. We got to see more involvement from the outside receivers. We've seen the slots get some passes, but we haven't seen any real big play from the outside yet. I need to see outside receivers, Cam White, Juwan Story, Ladarius Brown. Did Ladarius Brown have a catch today yet? I mean, I don't even know if he was thrown to, but
He had two.
Those
They were obviously short passes.
but stretch the field vertically more with those guys. Test Texas Tech secondary. As Gary mentioned, this is a secondary today that had two pretty good corners.
Yeah.
We got to see how well TCU does against Texas Tech's corners next week.
I'll echo that. You got to make plays in the passing game because that's going to open up plays for TCU's best playmakers, who right now it seems like all those guys are in the backfield. It's Catalan, James, and Boykin running the football, but Tech's going to be able to load up in the box if TCU can't throw it. Got to make some plays on the edges. Big plays in the passing game earlier will be huge for a TCU offense that needs to assert itself right away. They're the Jays. I'm the A. Thanks for watching. This is Horned Frog Blitz.